And at the time, Poe One, he's one of my mentors that I learned from, that I really learned, how to understand this dance and foundation and the spirit behind, breaking and hip hop, as far as what we do. And he saw Jabberwockies and he's like, yo, you guys got something special, man. And this is when Jabberwockies wasn't really doing anything except for little showcases here and there. And he's like, the group got something special, man. He's like, I never seen it before. He's like, you guys could do something with it if you guys even wanted to. And at the time, we weren't even thinking that far. We were just like, yo, and we were more of an underground group in the choreography scene.
Salute to the subscribers, those that live beyond the Cypher. I am your host, Illskillz. This is Beyond the Cypher, the podcast that shows the humanity and the superhuman. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. They cost you nothing. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Beyond the Cypher. Today, for episode 18, Beware of the Jabberwock, we have an individual who has reached some of the highest heights in breaking and dance entertainment. From his foundation in the dance, to going on to do commercials, movies, dancing with Shaq and DaBaby, and world tours with pop stars, we have Jabberwocky's own bboy Rainen. What is up, my dude?
Doing good, man. Just chilling out here at work, trying to keep it going during this pandemic.
No doubt, man. And you have, and we'll get into it later, but you have like one of the funnest jobs in the world right now, man.
Luckily, man, I'm able to do this for a 9 to 5, being
doubt.
able to dance and put together shows and performances and whatnot. It's definitely hard work, but it's still work that, I'm glad to have, what I mean? It's definitely a blessing. And I thank God every day for that, especially during this time, that I'm still able to push forward with this company and to keep it going. So.
No doubt. And we talked about it a little bit off cam about how you are able to still work during the pandemic. So is it fair to say, knocking on wood, that Jabberwockies are pandemic proof?
Knocking on wood, I'm hoping, man. We did have to do a lot of downfalls, during this time, just like every other company. Before the pandemic, what I appreciated the most is that we were employing about 50 to 60 people in our company alone. But during this pandemic, we had to downsize a lot, just like any other company had to. So by not and a lot of the times, what we usually live by and what we work off of is our live performances, live shows. We have our show out here in Vegas, and then we had a show in Macau. We had Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood. We had those shows running every year, and because of the pandemic, a lot of things had to stop. So we had to let go of a lot of cast members. We had to let go of a lot of, people that were employed by us. But, it's been a year. We've still been able to have a small group of us still working and still being able to put out really good, content, that entertains our audience. And, we're hoping, fingers crossed, that the governor opens us back up, by March 15th at the latest. And then, we can get everybody back in. So.
No doubt, man. Get them fingers crossed.
Exactly.
Now I wanna go back, right? I wanna go back to your beginning because you guys have probably millions of fans that know you as Jabberwockies and then moving forward, and they might not have any knowledge of your history as being like a real b-boy pre-Jabberwocky days, right?
Right.
So how did you come into contact with hip hop and specifically breaking?
Well, for me, right, I started breaking back in 1992. I got really inspired, of course, like anybody who was in my generation of breaking at that time, Beat Street, Wild Style, all those, movies that you can name, even Breakin', because in Breakin' 2, that's where you saw Orko and you saw, a lot of also like animation, Mr. Animation, and all them were a part of those videos and, just really getting down during that time. But even through that, I ended up getting inspired even by, the people that are within your community. A lot of them at the time, it was called housing, which is really weird, right? Like people are calling it, oh yeah, are you a houser? And that was like a mixture in the West Coast, right? They called it that because it was like a mixture of what mop tops were doing at the time, in New York, The Bay Area kind of took it and did more routine styles to it. Us in San Diego, we ended up looking up to what crews like Jughead Tribe or Knuckle Neck were doing in the Bay. And
What's up? Souls of Mischief in the house right now. Hyro HQ, East Oakland, California. In the house with the Knuckle Neck Tribe, Zulu Nation.
Right. Man, you already know this hip hop, the golden age style, straight up. Hyro, Zulu, Knuckle Neck, all day, baby.
Speak on it.
Yeah.
our crews at that time, which is like Delivery Boys in San Diego, B-Boy Alliance in San Diego, Unique Rock, all these different crews that were starting off, we were inspired by, what people in the East Coast were doing in the Bay Area. And so it was a mixture of like, I guess you could say housing or house mixed with breaking. People were still doing windmills and, like donkey kicks and, you know what I mean? All those like type of moves. So that was really our inspiration back in the 90s, and really didn't get into like the B-boy element of it. Probably, I think for me, as far as really learning the essence and what the dance was, probably like maybe like 5 or 6 years later, because at that time, the breaking that I was learning, especially in the West Coast, was all power moves. A little bit of footwork here and there, mostly power moves. So, and at that time, we were inspired and learning from people like Air Force Crew.
See, me as an innovator, I have contributed to the culture. There are insane moves that are previously thought of being impossible. Moves like head spins, halos, double halos, aerials, elbow spins, or just crazy combinations, that is not normal to the eye. Just like when I'm doing my head spins, people go crazy, especially when I speed up. They say, how does he do that?
They were like one of the top crews in the West Coast that was really, I guess you could say, professional and really working at that level. Little Caesar, you had Orko at that time, you had Willpower, B-Boy Ronnie, which his name was B-Boy Static at the time. He was one of my mentors and teachers that I learned how to do power moves from. And they were taking crews in from like San Diego, which is our crew, Delivery Boys. We were probably the best power move crew in San Diego. And then you had Renegades, which was the best power move crew in the Bay Area. And, Air Force Crew was kind of like linking up with us at the time. And at this time, I'm like 13 years old, maybe even just turning 14.
Okay.
And, and the crew that I was in was the same crew that Cros1 was in. So
wow.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to test his B-boy gangster, you can vouch for him.
Oh yeah. So Delivery Boys was like a real dope crew that I was lucky enough to be a part of with Cros1, our friend Donnie, who was a big part of that. And we were really repping the San Diego scene more on the power move style, right? At the time, there was called like the international power trend, and in the 90s, it wasn't like nowadays. You have to have everything to be a complete B-boy. But during that time in the 90s, there was actually like a style versus power rivalry at that time.
How do you judge in a competition style and power? How would you judge that?
Well, it's almost like sometimes at this point, it could be like apples and oranges. You know what I mean? Some people have a really great idea of footwork and style and basics, and then some other people have a great background in just understanding, you know, more of the difficult moves or power, you know. And the problem is that in battles, the conversation is lost.
Today we're gonna dig into some rare classics. Early 2000s breaking scene. It has changed a lot ever since in almost 20 years. Especially in Europe. Ever since big air moves such as continuous air flares, hand hops and air chairs became mainstream in the late 90s, the whole scene's attention turned towards the big moves. The beautiful European style from the years before, with a lot of flavor, a lot of foundation, a lot of character, a lot of style. It was recognized worldwide with crews such as Actual Force, Parasitic Breakers, Battle Squad, Throwdown Rockers and such. Those forgotten real quick and everybody just wanted to fly.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was like Rocksteady and everybody who was under Rocksteady's belt, especially in San Diego, which was like B-Boy Alliance or Unique Rock. Like these are all crews that were just focusing on style, you know? And then you had crews like my crew, Delivery Boys, Renegades, we were just mostly focused on power moves. That's it.
Right.
You know, no style. It was like, get your air moves right, you know?
No doubt.
And so, I mean, that's the era that I learned and that I came from, you know, as far as breaking. And, you know, I just kept it going from then on. Jabberwockies was something that I got into back in 2003. So at this point, I was pretty much already an established B-boy, competing and entering jams and traveling. You know, when I was sponsored by Tribal Gear, you know, they would send us out to Japan. They would send a team out to Japan and to perform in battle out there.
I totally forgot about the whole tribal era. Because it was like you, Crumbs. Who else was repping tribal real hard back then?
At that time, when I was, before I got sponsored by Tribal, right? It was like Flowmaster, Po1, Crumbs, Ariston, or Remind, right?
Right.
Floor Rock, Easy Rock, you know? So you saw all these high-level B-boys that are sponsored by Tribal, you know, Flowmaster, all of them, you're like, yo, I want to be a part of that. Luckily, Tribal started in San Diego. You know, Cros1 was also a part of that team too. Oh, and wow. So I was already, you know, I guess you could say Cros1 was kind of like our big brother, right? So he knew Bobby, he knew Carl from Tribal at the time, Brisk and everybody. You know, he was letting them know, hey, you got some really other dope talent out here in San Diego that could also rep Tribal, which was like me, Reveal. At the time, Iron Monkey was living with Cross.
About to go to Tribal. And after Tribal, we're going to Japan.
Go to Japan.
Hey, I'm doing the interview here, buddy.
Right?
Right.
So we got sponsored by Tribal at the same time that Moy and Boy were sponsored, and B-Boy Kareem. And so we were like the next generation of B-Boys to be sponsored by Tribal Gear at that time.
Right.
You know? And so we were, and Ruin, Frankie Flav, like all of us were being sent out to rep Tribal. And it wasn't until like, then later on when I got in California and I was repping with California, pretty much the whole California squad was sponsored by Tribal.
By Tribal? Wow.
Yeah. Because everybody who was in California was already previously sponsored with Tribal.
No doubt. Yo, were you ever in West Coast Rockers or no?
I was not at West Coast Rockers, but I trained with them a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was like during the time when I was graduating high school, like 1999.
Okay.
And then during 1998 and 1999, my senior year, I guess that's when I started to really get back into breaking as far as competing, right? Because in the early 90s, from like 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, I was breaking a lot. Then when you get into high school, you get into sports. So I was into wrestling at that time. And this is a funny story. I was into wrestling, me and my boy Maya. And at that time, Cross was always coming down to kind of help coach our wrestling team.
Oh my God, time out. Cross was
a wrestler also.
No doubt. What? Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's funny. So he was in. He got his hand in everything in Southern California, don't he?
I mean, he was like, I don't know if Cross was like a dope ass wrestler or really good at jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And so when we got into wrestling, the first person that we were hitting up was Cross. So Cross would come down to. We lived in Murrieta, and so we used to wrestle for Murrieta Valley High School. And he used to come down and kind of help. And at the time, he would be like, "Hey, man, you guys still break? You know, I'm still doing stuff in the b-boy scene. You know." And we'd be like, "Oh yeah, we break at at lunch every once in a while, but it is what it is, right?" Once I started to get more serious into it, because when I went to the first freestyle session, I was like, "Yo, this is dope." I went to freestyle session 2, and that's when I was like, "Yo, I'm getting back into it." That was my junior year. So during my senior year, I was always hitting up Cross. I was like, "Yo, man, how can I get back into the b-boy scene a little bit more? I want to compete." He was hooking me up with people like Reveal and people in San Diego, as well as getting me connected with different b-boys in the scene up in LA. I ended up actually getting connected with one of my friends, rest in peace, his name is Wyze.
I was going to ask you about Wyze.
Yeah, man. So Wyze, he saw me because we were all living in Riverside. So I'm, even though San Diego is where I represented, from like for a while I was living in, I also represent Riverside as well, because I was there from like 1991. I mean, my parents still live there. I still visit there a lot. And so there was a inland b-boy scene that Wyze kind of helped start. And when he heard about me, he's like, "Yo, there's this guy that, is really dope at power." He started hitting me up, started calling me. He's like, "Yo, we got to practice. We got to train." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I would drive down to Corona and practice in his living room with him, and he would have guys like this other guy named Tin, who was a part of this crew called DNA, which is the same crew that RJ is a part of, right?
Right.
And, Wyze, it was like, I guess he was like the glue in Riverside to kind of bring the b-boy scene up.
Okay.
Right? Because then after that, he was a little bit older than me, but me and Wyze would literally drive to like, once we connected, at that time in 99, like we would drive to every event and enter events together. Like we entered Floor Wars together and we made it to the semifinals against, I think it was against Charles and
From Soul Control.
And another dude from Climax who was in Soul Control at the time. Not Eric, but I forget his name. He was another guy that did a lot of footwork and style.
Not Barmack.
Not Barmack. No. It's another guy. I'm forgetting his name. It was Eric's partner. That was a part of Climax.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I think it was those two. And we made it to the semifinals. We lost to Charles, But that was like when like Floor Wars first was like, "Oh, yo, shoot, this is an event in LA." And everybody was like hype about it,
Right.
We entered B-Boy Summit 99 together. And I think we made it to the second round in that battle. And we did pretty good at that battle too. But yeah, Wyze was definitely helped me get through as far as meeting a lot of different B-Boys,
Right.
Because he was also connected with West Coast Rockers, and that's where that ties in.
No doubt.
From Wyze, I ended up practicing a lot with Energetic. I practiced a lot with Little Rock, Tails. I started getting more involved in the Fullerton and Anaheim b-boy scene because it was literally only like 30 minutes away from Riverside. So that's how we all started connecting in that way.
No doubt. How did his passing affect you, man?
How did his passion?
Passing.
His passing, man. It was shocking. like, I think, like from Dunak, RJ, and myself, because, especially B-boys who are from Riverside, right? We knew how much Wyze 9 meant to us in the scene. He really was one of the first B-boys in Riverside that was getting his name out there at that time. He was part of the Universal B-boys, with Iron Monkey and Ivan and Nuri. So he was one of the first B-boys that was going out and traveling and training, and living that B-boy lifestyle as well. And a lot of us were still coming out of high school, just breaking in our garages, at that time too. I mean, we had a friend, our friend Tin, who had really dope at Power, and he passed away during that time. So me, Wyze 9, RJ Dunak, we even dealt with that death at that time as well. But yeah, when we heard about Wyze 9, it really, did it bother me? Yeah, of course, because I did have a close connection with Wyze,
Right.
for a couple of years. Of course, when people's lives go a little bit differently, I focus more on b-boying, and it got to the point where Wyze was just, doing the family thing, and all that stuff. So it was a shock when we heard about it, and a lot of us we learned a lot from Wyze when it came to the b-boy scene.
Right. And I think that alongside him is when I first get introduced to Rainen during the VHS era.
Yeah.
Like you alongside him. But one of my earliest memories of
a lot of the guys that we battled at the time were all from the East Coast. So going to that jam, it was like, not that it was separated, but you could kind of like get the intensity when you walked into the room. And especially the beef between K-Mel and Reveal.
For more quality content from Beyond the Cypher with Illskillz, don't forget to press the like and subscribe buttons. Also, feel free to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Beyond the Cypher. Let us know how we're doing in the comment section, and to make sure you don't miss anything from the channel, smash that notification bell. We appreciate the love and support, so peace until the next episode.